All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Megan Fox. I write with pjmedia.com. You can find my articles there every day. And on this YouTube channel, I have been doing a bunch of entertainment, pop culture stuff. And today I want to talk about the Golden Girls. And I want to talk about how, a bunch of you have said and compared And Just Like That to the Golden Girls, which was a terrific show when I was a kid that showed older women navigating dating and other things, life and dating after 50. Gosh, they were probably like in their 60s or late 50s, early 60s, right? So I thought I would recap the pilot for you and just kind of talk about what the Golden Girls got so right that And Just Like That got so wrong. So let's start, shall we? First of all, it starts out and that awesome theme song comes on and just it brought me right back immediately. I used to watch this show at my grandma's house, and I went to my grandma's house every single weekend in Downers Grove, Illinois. And my grandma and my grandpa were divorced for many, many years, and so she always lived alone as long as I knew her, she lived alone. And she had this little funny dog and a couple of cats, and we would sit in the breezeway and light a fire and play cards and watch TV. And this was one of our favorite things to watch. And she would laugh and laugh. I can still hear her laugh as I was watching this. I could just imagine her with me. She died several years ago. I miss her so much. Um, oh, I miss her so much. So this really brought back some good memories of being at Graham's house and just having a good time. So the theme song is great. And of course, the great Rue McClanahan plays Blanche Deveraux. So it opens up and Dorothy comes in and she's explaining to Coco, who's there. Well, they refer to him as like their gay cook, which is really funny. And I never noticed when I was a kid. I didn't notice that they had a gay character on the show because when you're a kid, you just don't even know. And Sophia calls him the fancy man, which I get a huge kick out of. It's just funny. So he's in there cooking something for dinner, and Dorothy comes in and she's complaining. She's a teacher, and right off the bat, the very first thing she says is, there are 2 girls with shaved heads and 3 boys with green hair, and I told them you're too ugly to look at. Get out of my classroom. And then she's saying that the parents are calling and they're all upset. And now the parents are mad at her. And, that she had to apologize to a girl named Tiffany with a bald head and a nose ring. I mean, it's funny. It reminds me of when, back in the day, we could just call it what it was. We could call the freaks freaks and say it was weird. Now you have to just pander to it, I guess. And this is so funny because it reminded me of my dad so much. My dad had a grocery store, and one time back in the 80s there was like the punk scene was happening, and so you'd have these kids with like the mohawks and the pins in their ear and stuff, and a guy like that came in the store once, and my dad handed him a paper bag, and the kid's like, "What's that for?" And he goes, "Put that on your head." He goes, "Why would I put it on my head?" And my dad goes, "Because you're too ugly and I don't want to look at you. So when you come in my store, you either put a bag on your head or don't come in." And this was the same kind of joke that Dorothy's telling. And I just had such a kick out of it. I just thought, my God, that was funny. That reminds me of my dad. Anyway, Blanche comes in. She wants to borrow this mink stole. They're making fun of her because it's super hot outside. It's Miami. Um, but she's going out on a date with somebody named Harry. And uh, she's excited about Harry. Can't wait to go. And Rose comes in. We meet Rose, and Rose is just, Betty White. God love her. She plays a ditz so well with her attitude of, totally naive. Um, and it's just fabulous. She's fabulous, and she always is good for the laughs. Rose is amazing, and she's complaining about work. She works as a grief counselor, and she's complaining that there's too many sad people. And Dorothy's like, "Well, what do you expect? You're a grief counselor." Comedians. And then It's so great because Dorothy tells this big long story about how she was at work today and she had the greatest moment. She was talking to some 20-year-old teachers and she really felt like she was one of the girls. You know, she forgot for a minute that she was older and she's telling Rose all this and she's like, "And I just we were having so much fun and I totally forgot that I'm so old. And then I got in the car and I looked in the mirror and there was this old lady staring back at me and I didn't recognize her." And Rose, totally deadpan, goes, "Who was it?" And then Dorothy has to tell her, "It was me." You know, like, she's totally just out there in left field. Blanche is, borrowing Rose's earrings, she's getting excited to go on a date, and she breaks the news to them that this guy's already asked her to marry him, and now we find out that Rose and Dorothy are just they're panicking because this is Blanche's house. And they all just recently moved in with her. They answered an ad at the grocery store for roommates, and they're so happy with one another that they're terrified now that she's gonna be leaving, and so they're trying to find out, "Well, what are you gonna say? Are you gonna do it?" And then Sophia comes over. They think it's Harry, but it's Sophia, Dorothy's mom, and she's so funny. She's one of the funniest characters in this show. She says, "The home burned down. I had to take a cab here. There's no more nursing home. It's gone. It's burned down." And she tells tells Dorothy, "I need $67 for the cab." Dorothy's like, "$67? The home's 15 minutes from here, Ma. What do you need $67 for?" And she says, "I don't know. My driver's Cuban." And this is when Sophia tells her politically incorrect jokes. I mean, she's not on the screen for 5 minutes, and she's already told gay jokes about the fancy man in the kitchen. And she says about the Cuban drivers, "Why don't they learn English? I'd have less trouble getting around Ecuador." So funny. So so Sophia's we also find out in this that she's had a stroke, and it's affected the parts of her brain that, regulate her filter. So she just says whatever she thinks, and when Blanche comes in the room, Sophia goes, "You look like a prostitute." And Blanche doesn't get offended. She's just like, "Oh, she's had a stroke. She doesn't know what she's saying." So this is Harry. He comes over to pick up Blanche. Nobody likes him except for Dorothy and Blanche. Rose and Sophia think, there's something wrong with him. And Sophia, as soon as he leaves, she says, "He's a sleazeball." Scuzzball? Scuzzball. She says, "That man is a scuzzball." And man, does she get the laughs. And it's funny because this was definitely done in front of a live audience because it doesn't sound like a laugh track, it actually sounds like a live audience, and there are moments where it's quiet, but there's just 1 or 2 people just cannot stop laughing, and you can see the actors playing off of it, which is a really fun thing. You can see them waiting for the laughter to stop or staying quiet so the laughter will increase, because there are these moments where they play off one another and you can tell they're waiting before they say the next line because the audience is still getting the joke and they're still, they're like playing with the audience, which is fun. There were a couple moments like that in this pilot. It was really clearly a success. The audience was absolutely loving it. So Rose is, they're up all night. They're so worried about what is Blanche going to do. Is she going to get married, and then where will they live? And Rose says this really sweet speech about how at this age they have, they already married and they had their children, and then the children grew up and moved away, and then their husbands died, and now they're alone with all this time left, and they don't know what to do with it, and Rose does not wanna be alone. She's terrified she's gonna be alone, and here she's thinks she's found this great situation with these ladies who she loves and she wants to stay with, but now this is being threatened. Um, this was something that And Just Like That could have addressed, Carrie losing her husband and seeing how she navigates that. What we got was like closet rearranging. What these women are doing are they're sitting around actually having conversations about how this affected them, how it feels to be alone. Like you start to really feel for these two, like, oh no, where are they going to go? This is it's a good story, right? Something we did not get with And Just Like That. So Blanche comes home and they're desperate to find out, well, what the heck happened? And she tells them they're getting married. So they're gonna have to move out and they can stay as long as they need to. So it's the wedding day because Blanche says, "Why would we wait? We're old at this point. We just need to get it over with." But But Rose keeps telling Dorothy, I have a very bad feeling about this guy. There's something off about him. My feelings are never wrong, and I need to tell Blanche. And Dorothy's like, absolutely not. You are not telling her anything. This is her day. You're just going to shut up. And it makes for some really hilarious physical comedy between Rose and Dorothy that gets absolutely hysterical, where Dorothy's like silencing Rose. She's got her hand on her mouth. She's moving her head up and down. At one point, she's choking her, trying to keep her from telling Blanche that she doesn't like this guy. Well, so he's supposed to be there, but he's not there. The priest shows up and he's like, all right, we're half an hour past this wedding time and the groom's not here. And he makes this joke. I've got burials to do. It's Miami. So people are old and they're dying. And he needs to go be at Mr. Pincus's funeral. So they're then they get a knock on the door. They think it's Harry, but it's not. It's a police officer. And he's there to tell Blanche, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Harry's a con man and he's a bigamist. He's been married 6 times and we've arrested him. He left you a letter. So, oh, well, I forgot this part. Dorothy had said, so we find out some backstory when they were all worried about what's Blanche going to do. We found out that Dorothy got married to Stan when she was pregnant. She had to be forced to marry him. And Rose tells a funny joke about it being a blow dart wedding or a blowgun wedding instead of a shotgun wedding. And so and then she says, Dorothy tells the story about how Stan left her. Stan's not dead. He had an affair with a stewardess, and she tells it in a really funny way. She says they were on a trip to Hawaii, and a stewardess was told to give the passengers a lei, and she got confused, and Stan got lucky, and they live on Maui now. It was funny. So he left her for a stewardess, and Sophia tells a fantastic, hilarious joke. So if you were going to go with the old people jokes, the way that they did it in this show, in the Golden Girls, was so funny that I remember, I can still, like I said, I can still hear my grandma laughing. So Sophia tells this joke where they're all sitting around talking about how they should stop drinking at night before they go to bed so they don't have to get up and pee several times. So it's funny because this is like a pee storyline that we got in And Just Like That, although this one's funny. So they're all talking about when do they stop drinking at night. Sophia says, I never get up in the middle of the night. I never get up. I always sleep through the night and I always pee at 7 a.m. like clockwork. Unfortunately, I don't wake up till 8 a.m. It's hilarious. The crowd goes crazy. It's just so funny. And that's the way to tell a funny joke like that. We don't need to see it. We don't need to see you peeing in a bottle. It was good enough. So anyway, so the officer shows up. We know that Harry's a bigamist, and he sends a letter, and Dorothy reads the letter to Blanche, and they're trying to comfort her, but she says that she feels like an old fool and that she just wants to die, that she's so embarrassed. And she ends up going, disappearing into her room for several days, and the girls are really worried about her because she's just not coming out. So Dorothy, this is like a couple days later, Dorothy comes home and Sophia's sleeping on the porch and she's putting a mirror under her nose to check and see if she's still breathing. And Rose is like, she's sleeping. And Dorothy goes, well, you never know. And, so they start talking about how they're worried about Blanche and when is she going to come out of her room? And, maybe we've tried to cheer her up, but it's not working. And then Sophia says something, so she's not sleeping. And Dorothy says, I thought you were sleeping. And Sophia goes, well, you never know. It's just so funny. So Blanche comes out and she tells them, I was super depressed, and I was feeling really alone. And then I woke up this morning feeling good. And I realized that I was feeling good because I have you girls. And so, you are my family, and let's never part. Let's never let men get in the way. And Dorothy says, even if we all get married, we'll all live together. We'll add on to the house. And that's how the pilot ends. And then I don't know if you've been a fan of the show or you watch the show, but it goes on. I guess I've watched like 4 episodes of this last night because I really got into it and it was so funny. And then, the second episode, third episode, and fourth, it's all about them going on different dates, meeting different men. One man that Dorothy makes a date with makes a pass at Blanche and it almost ruins their friendship. And I mean, there's all kinds of stories that And Just Like That could have done it with their, reboot, and they didn't. They didn't even try. It was like they didn't even try. Like if they had just gone back and watched the Golden Girls, they could have taken. They could have literally taken like a bigamist. That would have been hilarious. Like one of them gets maybe they all lose their husbands and now one of them is dating a bigamist. I mean, it would have been funny at least. Better than what we got. Jeez, what we got was awful. If they had just gone and taken the stories from the Golden Girls, none of us would be complaining right now. But if you have a chance, it's on Hulu right now. It's streaming on Hulu. You can watch all of the seasons. I think there are 7 seasons or maybe more. And they are all on Hulu right now. So check it out because this is some seriously good entertainment. Really good entertainment. Like it doesn't get much better than the Golden Girls. They were fantastic. And I really enjoyed this trip down memory lane. So if you guys have comments or questions or anything, leave them in the comments below. And I'm happy to talk to you about this show or anything else. And maybe I'll come up with some more of these after, if I go through. I'm not going to do every episode, obviously, but maybe if I find more stories in the Golden Girls that could have translated to And Just Like That, you better believe I'll come back and do it. That would be fun. Anyway, like and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful